Welcome to the video. I'm Card Game Philosopher. Let's try again. Sorry for the lazy introduction. This has been so many a time to try and make this video. My computer is refusing to work along with me. We'll try and get right into it. So, what this video is about, if you've seen the title, whatever. Duel Links made a new update towards their rules and the general working of burn/effect damage cards that are in the game. This is a big thing, I'll get right into it, but we're going to discuss what it is, what it means, upsides, downsides, and should this be implemented in Speed Duels, and would that be possible, would that be fine? That's the big thing. So, first of all, to tell you what happened, Duel Links made a new announcement that all of the effect damage with cards that they'll implement from here onwards, together with Lava Golem, who was already in the game, will be halved. So for example, Lava Golem right now deals 1000 damage, 1000 damage to the controller of it during the standby phase. With these new rule updates, it will only deal 500. This is of course a big change in gameplay and a big nerf for effect damage cards. But I think most people will agree that this is a much deserved hit on these cards. For example, they want to bring in the new Trickstar cards in the future in Duel Links. These can easily deal a lot of damage. If they would not nerf it, these cards would straight up be broken. They would push aside everything that's there. And for future card design, for future choices of bringing cards into the game, as they said themselves, it would be difficult to just take them from Advanced and put them in Duel Links because of the difference in format. The biggest difference, of course, the fact that in Duel Links, same with Speed Duels, we're only dueling with 4000 life points. And if you're only playing with half the amount of life points, cards that deal straight up effect damage without considering any battle or anything of the sorts, yeah, they're double as good actually. They're twice as good. That's a Lava Golem in regular Yu-Gi-Oh! If you throw it at your opponent, they take 1000 damage. They go, if they haven't taken damage yet, they go from 8000 to 7000. That's not big of a change. Of course, 1000 damage is still a lot. It can still do a lot, whatever. But I mean, you're not in lethal range to any realistic monster yet. You are not afraid that you'll die in the next turn simply because of Lava Golem itself. You are not set on a real clock yet. You still have a lot of turns to draw outs to your own Lava Golem or to push your opponent in a position with the 3000 beater you have. This is all regarding Lava Golem, but it's the same for every other effect damage. All of these things are just, yeah, double the turns to kill, double this, double that, all of it. Now, while having this, you're not solving all of the problems. It's still different in a lot of ways, but it's getting a lot closer to it, and it's a lot fairer. Of course, now it takes the same turns for Lava Golem to kill in advance as in Speed Duel on its own, just its own. It will still take 8 turns now to kill the opponent, which is fine. 8 turns is fine. If you can't do anything against a Lava Golem for 8 turns, your opponent you have to actually admit that maybe your opponent deserved to win there. Things that are still a little bit different is the fact that because you play with less life points, you're always closer to being in a lethal range for a realistic monster. For example, in Speed Duels, if you take Lava Golem once and you take the 500 damage, you're already in a lethal range for something like Perfectly Ultimate Grave Moth, which has 3500 attack and is one of the most played cards we have right now. So that's definitely a thing that we should consider. Now, that's one thing. So that's all of the impact it probably has. These kind of things. The questions I still have is things like the DDD cards. They have Dark Contract, Spell and Traps that deal damage to themselves, which is standard 1000 life points damage to yourself during each standby phase, just like Lava Golem, except you do it to yourself. Now what I wonder is, this is halved as well, right? Because if it is, that's actually a boon to DDD decks that they don't no longer deal that much damage to themselves. It makes it easier for them to be played. So that's something good in that direction. Something weird and something that completely changes things if you just have it is things like Relinquished. Unlike Amazon Swordswoman, who just does the battle damage to the opponent, Relinquished deals the same amount of effect damage to the opponent. So the damage Relinquished gives to the opponent is halved as well. So while usually if you're both at like, I don't know, you're both at 1,000 life points, let's say, and your opponent attacks with on a Relinquished which has 0, let's say this is a thing, they attack on it with a Gravekeeper's Oracle who has 2,000 attack, you would, or no, a better example, let's say it has 1,000 attack, the opponent attacks with a Gravekeeper Oracle, usually you would go into a tie, or they wouldn't do this, or there's a risk to it because both of you would take 1,000 life point damage, the same amount that you would take, and you would both go down. Or in general speaking, if you go from all the way to 4,000 and you keep having this with Relinquished, if you both players keep taking the same amount of damage, eventually you'll go out the same time. But if you're only getting half the damage your opponent keeps getting from their Relinquished, then of course that makes Relinquished a lot worse. So those are also things that just, instead of just making them more like Advanced, completely change the working of the card or have a big impact on the card. Things like Nightmare Wheel, Zoma, the Spirit, Mask of the Accursed, Gravekeeper's Curse, they would all do half the damage they do now. I personally have look at it in a positive way. I see it as something that would improve the game, that would make it more fun to play against it, since I personally think most people do not like playing against a burn deck. But if you look at it from the side of the burn player, so to speak, for them this is a different story. You can't really deny it if they say burn hasn't really been on its own a deck anymore, or the best deck or the top tier deck in Speed Duels. But something like this would give them a huge nerf. While they're not even top tier right now, this would straight up throw them down another tier or two, which they wouldn't deserve. And if you like playing a burn deck, then of course this means a lot to you. And I can kind of agree to that. But on the other side, I think it's collateral damage we need to take, but that's my opinion, it's not a fact. On the other side, since Speed Duels is a physical game, and because the makers of it, everyone had the intention of making this an easy way for new players to get into Yu-Gi-Oh!, having this unwritten rule of cards, having this rule that's not on the cards that they only deal half the thing they say they deal, might be a little bit confusing, so to say, or it might even be less easy for them to get into that or understand that. That's an argument you could make. I personally think that's not a really good argument, since just like every other change that's happened to Speed Duels, you could just throw it in the rulebook. You could throw it in the guideline, the tutorial, whatever you make. Since it's not that hard to just take the rulebook, add another line to Speed Duel rules and just say cards only deal half the damage they normally do deal because of the 4,000 life points nature of Speed Duels. You could just put it in there, you could put it in tutorial, all of that is a real possibility. You would not have to errata the cards to say that. Because, of course, you cannot, like in Duel Links, they could possibly errata the cards and just say they deal half the damage. Just have it on the card that Love Golem only deals 500. That's definitely a change you can do in Duel Links. But in Speed Duels, if they cannot do that, because it's a physical cards, and the Yu-Gi-Oh cards in Speed Duels are also legal for Advanced Duels. Whereas you could say, like, with cards like Lava Golem, like, yeah, but why would anyone ever play a card that only does half of it? Why would you play a worse version of the card? But for example, if you would ever get DDT or something to Speed Duels, and they would have that on there, then of course you would play these cards because they damage you less. And yeah, having this whole discussion even is enough reason to say, like, yeah, they can't do that. But I still think that if you look at it like this, it's not that hard to do, and I think it's actually something we should do in Speed Duels. Duel Links set the first step with this, with showing like, hey, this is something we're going to do. Just taking this chance, taking this opportunity you get right now as the owner makers of Speed Duels to follow this route, the Duel Links set, for Speed Duels in general, just seems like the better way, seems like the perfect thing to do. Follow that and it would make a big change. Just imagine how much less threatening something like Zoma the Spirit would be if it only dealt half the damage it does now. That would make a big change in gameplay, even if the top decks stay the same, even if all the decks keep playing Nightmare Wheel Zoma, those kind of things. The gameplay itself would change simply because it's a thing now, simply because it would deal half the damage. For example, if I play Conflict Warrior, go aggressive, take my opponent's monster, go for the OTK. If they reveal Zoma now, a lot of the time I have to pass turn because I cannot take that damage. I cannot take that amount of damage. But if it would only be half, a lot of the time I would be able to push through, take that damage, and still try and go for the OTK, which would make it a lot more easier. While now a lot of the time I just have to, pass turn, then I guess you attack me, okay, that's game. Which is kind of stealing wins in a way. So that definitely seems like something I would like to see. Might be biased. What do you guys think? That's a big question now. Do you guys think this is possible for Speed Duels? Do you guys think Speed Duels should do this? Are you maybe a Burn player who wants to say like, hey, I really like this deck and I don't want this to change. Finally, Speed Duels is a format where Burn actually gets a real chance. Or something else. Maybe you have a completely different opinion. Either way, let me know in the comments below. Show what you think about this. Maybe have a discussion. Always welcome on the Discord for this discussion as well. And hope to see you next time. This was Card Game Philosopher. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.
Adidas,